In today's video, we're going to take a look at 4 more bold predictions that either aged terribly or ended up becoming dead wrong. It's a pretty fun series, and it's also pretty self-explanatory, so before we get started, drop a bad take or a comment that aged horribly, and also give me a bold prediction for the 2022 college football season, and maybe you'll be in next year's videos. Now, let's get started. So, the first one I want to talk about is Blake Barnett. I stumbled upon an article that said Blake Barnett could be the new face of Alabama. I mean, there was good hype for this. Coming out of California, Barnett had blossomed into a 5-star recruit. He did originally commit to Notre Dame, but after reopening his recruitment, he decided that Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide would be the best school for him. Well, how did he do? He actually made history to start out his career in the Nick Saban era, as he became the first true freshman to start the season opener for Nick Saban, but that's as good as it went. After a couple of bad possessions against USC, he ultimately got benched in favor of Jalen Hurts. He finished his Alabama career with 219 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. Midway through the year, he would enter the transfer portal. From there, he decided to transfer out to the Pac-12, where he became an Arizona State Sun Devil. After 1 year there, he only passed for a total of 40 yards and 1 pick, so he was once again on the move. He'd have to go down a level this time though, as he transferred to the American Athletic Conference and go to the University of South Florida. In his first year as a starter with Charlie Strong, he threw for 2,705 yards with 12 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. Not All-American numbers by any means, but a lot better than how he'd been performing before. 2019 was supposed to be his big year, but after throwing for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, he got hurt, and from there, he called it a career. I mean, he did have a wife and kid at that point, so he was ready to just move on from football and start the next chapter of his life. He'll go down as one of the biggest quarterback busts in college football history, and a huge what-if for Alabama, but the idea that he was going to be the face of that program ended up not aging too well. For our second bold take that aged terribly, this one is going to be fun. Quote, why quarterback Spencer Petras reminds his high school coach of John Elway. If you watched any Big Ten football or any bit of Iowa football this year, this statement makes you laugh. John Elway is one of the best quarterbacks in football history, and Spencer Petras could barely throw the ball past the line of scrimmage. Maybe you could blame it on the offense, or maybe you can blame it on him. It's probably somewhere in the middle, but either way, this take is not going to age well, and it already hasn't. Coming out of Marin Catholic High School in California, Spencer Petras was one of those guys who was flying under the radar. According to 24/7 Sports, he was the number 19 pro-style quarterback, a 3-star player, and the 421st player nationally. He was a 6-foot guy with a lot of potential, and fun fact, he originally committed to Oregon State before flipping to the Hawkeyes. He really wouldn't do much in his first 2 years, but going into 2020, he was going to replace Nate Stanley as the starting quarterback. He would start the team's opening game against Purdue, where he'd throw for 265 yards, but they'd end up losing that game. He did lead them to 4 straight wins over Michigan State, Minnesota, Penn State, and Nebraska, before he would finally have 2 games that proved he was legitimate. Against Illinois, he threw for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, and a win over Wisconsin, he threw for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. In 2020, he helped Iowa win 6 straight games to end the year and had 1,500 yards passing with 9 scores. Expectations were a lot higher for both Iowa and Petras going into 2021, so how would he do? Well, the Hawkeyes actually did pretty well, as they won 10 games and got to the Big Ten championship, but Petras, on the other hand, was pretty disappointing. His best game of the year came on the road against Maryland, as he combined for 5 touchdowns. Other than that, he was pretty abysmal. His worst game of the year came against Purdue, as he threw 4 interceptions in a 24-7 loss, right after they became ranked the number 2 team in the nation. In a big divisional game against Wisconsin, he played terrible, and then in the Big Ten championship game, he completely disappeared, as he went 9 of 22 for 137 yards without a touchdown or a pick. It seems that Petras couldn't really do much, and that is why at times Alex Padilla got an opportunity to play. Petras and Padilla are likely going to battle it out for the 2022 job, but it's safe to say, I don't really think he's John Elway. This one's going to hurt for Indiana football fans. All season we heard about how this was going to be the best team in Indiana football history, and how the Rose Bowl ran through Bloomington. This did not age well. Not only did the Rose Bowl not run through Bloomington, but Indiana had the most disappointing season of any Power 5 school in the nation. Let's talk about it. Led by star quarterback Michael Penix, up-and-coming head coach Tom Allen, and their superstar wide receiver Ty Freifogel, IU is supposed to have a tremendous offense backed by a really solid defense. They had a schedule that lined up pretty nicely, in which they got both Cincinnati and Ohio State at home. That is why many people, including myself, thought they deserved to be ranked. Part of that came from their breakout 2020 season, but a lot of that just came from the amount of returning talent they had. They go into their Week 1 road matchup ranked number 17 against the number 18 Iowa Hawkeyes. That game set the tone for the rest of the year. They lost 34-6, and Riley Moss had 2 pick sixes in the first half, and that game was over by the end of the first quarter. Indiana football was completely deflated, and it seemed like it was a gut punch. 2 weeks later against Cincinnati, they were winning, but their star linebacker Micah McFadden was ejected from the game, and from there, Cincinnati won 38-24. The team was 1-2 at this point, and they would have a very difficult stretch coming up. They'd play 3 straight top 10 teams, and it did not go well. They got shut out by Penn State, got killed 54-7 by Ohio State, and lost a close, heartbreaking game to number 10 Michigan State. At this point, Michael Penix was hurt, their best receiver DJ Matthews tore his ACL, and the defense was about ready to quit. That's why the season basically officially came to an end as they lost on the road to Maryland 38-35 and dropped to a 2-6 record. After getting blown out by Michigan, their season was officially over, and the worst game of the year came against Rutgers as they got shut out 38-3 at home. From there, they lose to Minnesota and get killed by their rival Purdue, and they finished with a 2-10 record. Their rival beat up on them, and they had started 4 different quarterbacks throughout the year, and the team that was ranked number 17 in the country and that was supposed to make the Rose Bowl ended up going 2-10 and is now the laughingstock of the Big Ten once again. I am personally an Indiana football fan though, so I hope things turn around in 2022, but as I take a look at the schedule and the roster, I'm not hopeful they make a bowl. But this bold take of Indiana being a Rose Bowl team ended up aging horribly. Before we get into the last bold prediction that failed, take a quick moment to let me know your thoughts down below and smash that like button and also subscribe if you have not already. Unlike most college football head coaches, Charlie Strong did not play college football. He get his start as a graduate assistant at both Florida and Texas A&M before he became the wide receivers coach at Ole Miss. He slowly worked his way up the ladder when he got his first big job at South Carolina as the defensive coordinator. In 2004, he was the interim head coach for the Gators, and eventually in 2010, took the Louisville job. While at Louisville, he led the team to 4 straight bowl games and got better every year. The epitome of it came in 2013 with Teddy Bridgewater as they went 12-1. Because of that, Texas was looking to replace Mac Brown, and expectations were through the roof for Strong. One article said, quote, "Charlie Strong vows to put Texas football back on the map." We all know how this one aged. In 2014, the Longhorns went 6-7 and lost in the Texas Bowl. It wasn't bad for his first year, but expectations were definitely going to be higher in 2015. The Longhorns ended up going 5-7 and missed a bowl game. This enraged the Texas fan base as that is a no-no for them, and that's why 2016 was going to be his make or break year. The team went 5-7, but there was a real opportunity for them to make a bowl game, except Kansas happened. In a late afternoon game in a stadium with no fans, the Kansas Jayhawks kicked a game-winning field goal and officially ended the Charlie Strong era. In 3 years in Austin, Strong went 16-21. This got him canned, and then he moved on to USF. He actually had a great year in 2017, as USF finished ranked number 21 and they won 10 games. But he eventually sputtered out of control, got fired from there, and is now the defensive coordinator for Miami. Strong has had a long coaching career, but his stint at Texas will always be laughed at and will always be remembered for the wrong reasons. But yes, in today's video we take a look at 4 bold predictions and takes that aged terribly, went through the backstories of it all, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to smash that like button, let me know your thoughts below, subscribe if you're new, and check out all the other videos in the series and on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.